Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-filled review for Star Wars Visions. Magina, may you rise, and may the Force be with you. Dank, Ferric, and Konnichiwa. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-filled review for Star Wars Visions, which is available now on Disney Plus to watch over and over and over and over again. If you're joining us for the first time, this is our review show where we share our spoiler-filled reactions and go a little deeper on what we thought of the various series that we cover. Now, allow me to introduce you to two of the coolest dudes in the galaxy. First up, as I said before, he's my Tomodachi for life, my senpai, the Qui-Gon Jinn to my Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Japanime Jedi, Justin.
Konnichiwa.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. You know, you said it best. Watch them over and over and over again.
Yes.
And I feel like I've done that for the last week so many
Right?
times on different
And I kind of want to
scales.
do it again. Oh my gosh. And joining us yet again, we have our own Donbury Dengar from Dagobah, Darcy the Doug Hudson.
I'm a Doug now? Really?
They're cool. He walks on his hands. It's kind of neat. Guys, let's dig into this. How was your vision after watching all these incredible, anime-infused Star Wars stories?
I thought it was awesome. After watching a few episodes, I went to my mom and my brother and was like, Star Wars only needs to be anime now. It's the best way to tell a Star Wars story, in my opinion. They all got it so right. They understand Star Wars to a T, and I loved it.
Yeah,
Very
because
cool.
they weren't trying to continue a story, right? They weren't trying to continue the existing canon. They were saying, oh, let's take what's already been established here and let's be inspired by it. Let's open the doors. Let's tell new stories. And actually, like, as the series has been released and there's been a lot more from the producers coming out saying that was their biggest motivation, was not to do another story with Darth Vader or Anakin or do another story about Luke. It was to really just be different from everything else. And I think that is its biggest success. Really, it's so different, but so inspired by Star Wars.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many callbacks and references that they make or like homages they're doing in all these episodes. So
For sure.
It's crazy how they managed to do it better than all of the last trilogy, basically.
That's exactly to that point, Darcy. It's like, they took all of the best sort of elements from story elements to visual elements to sound, and they just smashed it and remixed it with their own interpretation with each vision. It's fantastic. I can't stop gushing about how excited it makes me about the future of Star Wars, right?
Well, we'll definitely be going over probably a few of those callbacks as we go through all the various questions we have. Of course, this series, 9 animated shorts done by 7 different studios, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to highlight probably every single one of them. But, before we kind of dive into everything we loved, why don't we kind of structure this a little bit with some questions? And I want to start off, when Star Wars debuted back in 1977, it was widely regarded as having some of the best visual effects in cinema history at the time, with ILM becoming the industry leader in visual effects. And since then, we've seen Star Wars in 2D and 3D, but we've never seen Star Wars like this. So I want to hear it from both of you. Maybe we'll start with Darcy. Out of these 9 episodes, which one had your favorite visuals?
It's hard to say. Like they're all so good for so many ways. Of course, I think the first episode is very standout for me because it's so different than the rest. It feels like almost like we're watching historical footage or something like that. The graininess they managed to incorporate into that animation style, I loved it. Like that was the one. Again, that's probably my favorite overall story. But throughout the rest of the episodes, there are so many great little scenes and moments that it's so good. So good.
Totally.
Yeah, I think if we're talking about visual style, Nate, then to Darcy's point, The Duel is the best example of it. It introduces us to this idea of how different these visions, these shorts, are going to be from conventional Star Wars of what we know. And they really do mirror this whole samurai concept, which we know is so integral to Star Wars as a inspiration. So how it finds its way of thematically tying itself to samurai aesthetic, but also the visual style feeling very Akira Kurosawa, which was a heavy inspiration, that black and white, using color and using specific colors like red, blue, and green as lights throughout the episode in very interesting ways, as well as like with the lightsaber obviously being the red. In terms of visual style, I think it had its best. But I also, just as a quick honorable mention, I like the flip with something like Toby, cartoonish anime Astro Boy, as it's been referenced, and it has the best of everything you want from animation as a film.
I think that's it. I mean, you start off with the Duel, and then we move into sort of the chibi style of Tatooine Rhapsody. Yes. We get to the twins that has its very own, very specific, Trigger Studios style. That's very, But I think at a certain point throughout the series, you start off with something that is so different from the Duel that you sort of get lulled into the style of some of these other more traditional Japanese anime, and then you hit TOB1 or Toby, and it's that refreshing sort of kick again of like, oh yeah, like these are actually, if you really look at it, they don't blend together. They are all so different, but I think that one also stands out much like the Duel.
Yeah, and I think with the black and white aesthetic of Duel, it really just hits home how bold this whole take of Star Wars is going to be.
Oh yeah, it lets you know right off the bat, like
exactly.
This is different. Well, absolutely.
I think one of the coolest things about the Duel and one of the later episodes, The Elder, is the fact that given where they've placed them in the timeline, they could very well be canonized easily. Like those stories could have happened.
It could all be canonized. It could all be canonized.
To a point.
Maybe not
some of it
the
isn't.
twins. Maybe not the twins.
Yeah, there are specific episodes that cannot be canonized or definitely as inspiration. Some of them can definitely play into the grander scheme of things, which I think would be really cool to see if there's a crossover at any point. Because again, these stories, I care more about these characters from 15 minutes of an episode than I did for like most of the characters in the newest trilogy and some of the original trilogy. Like they managed to give so much character development and all these things. It was so good.
Yeah, it's the box that has allowed them. It's no longer there. It is extremely free.
Well, I think we're all falling on the Duel as I think we're all in agreement, our favorite visual style episode. I did want to just quickly shout out, like, yeah, man, like the charcoal sort of analog look to the entire episode was so cool, but the way that they emphasize the importance of the different colors, and especially red, and the world's understanding of what that color means to them, I thought was so cool because it visually tells the story, and I think they do that through colors, and they also do it through things that they don't have to directly reference, like the fact that you've got the TK armor on some of the different bandits, and then you also see the First Order armor on some of the bandits. So it tells you that like both those factions are probably long gone at this point, and it helps to really set the storyline without having them to have any sort of line to directly tell the audience like that's where we are in the Star Wars timeline.
It's all reacting off of visual cues, right? Like I loved how they used green and blue as like these accent lights in the frame, which are so subtle because Jedi aren't around. But the red is so predominant, as you pointed out, Nate, to just call to reference of what it means in the story. It's so well crafted and from a visual standpoint to really hit home the story without necessarily, like you said, having a lick of dialogue that needs to explicitly explain it, right? So
I mean, he didn't even say his name at the end of the episode.
No, and but he's referred to as the Ronin, right? Like, and that's what his inspiration is, the story,
right? But I think it was so cool that he didn't have to. You know what I mean? And I didn't leave that episode feeling like, well, why didn't he say his name? Like, I they did such a good job with just setting up the character as he is who he is. And I know that there is a novel that you can check out where you will be able to read more about the Ronin. But no, I do think this episode is one that honestly I could probably watch on mute. And I wouldn't encourage anyone to do that because we're about to talk about some of the things we heard and what we loved with that. But for me, this is just such a visual delight.
I mean, talking about visuals more throughout and getting away from that first episode, as much as we all love it, just like one of the like references that we were talking about was again another standout visual from the whole series from the twins when we see another destroyer get split during hyperspace and having that same split ship with the debris out the back and just the still frame. Like again, I cared more about that explosion than the one that we saw in Last Jedi. Like
the Aldo maneuver is. Yeah, absolutely.
That was really cool. And then also just the fact that anytime they like focused on the ornateness of these lightsabers that we're seeing, they're treating them more like katanas being and like the works of art that those swords are, and the respect they're paying to the blade. It makes me feel really good as a nerd, being like, these guys know Star Wars and respect it like the right way. I loved it. I loved anytime they made it look more like a katana. I'm like, yes, I'll take more of that, please.
You wouldn't have wanted them to throw it over their shoulder? I thought you loved that, Darcy.
No, I think just jumping off of that point about an overall visual style that really plays well is how they treated lightsaber fights more with a samurai aesthetic. Just like even in the duel when he kills the bandit, right? And he stabs her, and then when she drops, he like does the like flip and then
the flip and
puts it back in his
holster. He's cleaning off
holster.
the blood that isn't there, basically.
And I was like, that is so badass, right? So it was just really cool how they were able to find a way to merge samurai aesthetics and culture with Star Wars just so well from a visual standpoint.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally. And I think we are so used to hearing the voices after 3 trilogies, a few animated series, and a live-action series. We're used to hearing those voices after so much time spent with the characters we know and love. But, obviously with this being an anthology series, we move to see a new cast of characters with every episode. And so I kind of wanted to sort of move on to what we heard. And again, I would highly recommend it. Anyone watching the show, obviously we want you to recommend watching it multiple times, not only in English, but also in Japanese. I think you might find a new appreciation for different episodes when you do so. For instance, for me, I honestly, I got to be honest, I didn't quite enjoy the twins. No shade to Neil Patrick Harris and Alison Brie, but the first time I watched it, their voice performance really took me out of it because it is such an anime-ass episode. And so for me, I much preferred Junya Inoki and Ryoku Shirashi because I just thought that their voices helped to really speak to what the characters were actually saying, and it wasn't like a poor translation to English. But for you guys, I gotta know, with so many incredible voices that they have on both within the English cast and the Japanese cast, I want to know, what was your favorite one from this series? I know it's tough to choose.
Well, I feel like from the Japanese standpoint, I think you're right, Nate. Like something like the twins was better in Japanese than it was in English, because I feel like after watching it again, Alison Brie and Neil Patrick Harris, no shade to them, like you said, but they kind of overacted those voices, right?
Especially Alison Brie, I felt.
But I feel like
my problem was more with Neil Patrick and that one.
Yeah.
I didn't mind Alison Brie so much.
Alison Brie wasn't the problem. I think it was Neil Patrick that kind of took me out at times watching it the second time. I did enjoy the story, though. I thought that was a really cool concept. But yeah, I think the Japanese version was way better. And I don't know if I would necessarily be able to identify all of the great Japanese voice actors, but I do appreciate watching it in Japanese to really get the sort of nuances of how these lines are delivered, because as we've seen now, as we watch the English style, there is acting that is very apparent in voices that they try to do. As for favorites from the English cast, I could probably pick, I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give you 2. I think the Elder. I loved hearing David Harbour. Albeit it wasn't like immensely great. I just feel like it was really great to hear David Harbour in Star Wars.
Sure.
Right? And like
he was
a different
very
David
Qui-Gon
Harbour.
Jinn.
Yes,
I was just going to say that
he was 100% inspired by Qui-Gon Jinn. That's what I was going to get to. And then on the flip side of that, the Elder, played by James Hong.
Well, before you name 1/3 of the series as your Darcy, go ahead. I want to hear from you. What was one of your favorite cast
overall voice cast? I'm agreeing with Justin. If I had to pick one English episode, I would definitely go with The Elders, because David Harbour and I can't remember the guy who plays Dan in it, but like
Yes. Yeah.
the whole Master Padawan Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan banter worked perfectly with those two guys. And then again, like Justin said, even with the Elder himself, that banter, it was surprising because I recognized it and he wasn't a goofy character like I'm used to hearing that voice associated with. So I thought it was really cool. But overall, I think I prefer Japanese across the board. Maybe it's because I'm such a fan of anime.
Yeah.
But it's something about it. It fits the tone of the stories much.
It's a better
more
experience.
appropriately.
I agree.
It's a more wholesome experience. It's like the way it was intended. I know that's pretentious of saying, but it does have carry a different feeling and vibe.
I agree.
Before I get past the mic one more time, I'm a huge fan of the Star Wars audiobooks as well. That's how I usually partake my EU features is audiobooks when I'm working and driving. And so it was really cool to hear Mark Thompson, the longtime narrator for most of the Star Wars audiobooks, pop up in Tatooine Rhapsody as Lan with three of his very, very, if you've listened to the books, you've heard those voices either coming from a young Luke or an alien in the random Star Wars universe. So it was really cool for his few lines to be like, I know that guy and I've heard his massive voice range. So that was a really cool moment.
Very cool. Justin, what else did you take away? I know it's so tough to choose when we're going through these. I know.
These last two I would say are just more surprises to hear, right? So, Lucy Liu, her being the bandit, I was surprised that she was that character. And of course, I'm pretty sure you're going to call this one out, Nate, though, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like I was surprised when I found out that he was in Tatooine Rhapsody. I was very shocked. I was excited, happy. But I thought that was great. I loved it.
Yeah, him as Jay I thought was a lot of fun. I think that episode, again, kind of catches you off guard because you sort of have this really dark sort of narrative that still has a slightly happy ending with the duel, and then you move right into this almost probably what I think would be probably the most kid-friendly episode of the series.
I want to see that as an animated
between that
series.
and Toby.
I'm just going to say, like, that would be amazing as an animated series.
It's a hugely popular genre in anime of itself, just following like a young pop group or rock band, stuff like that, on their climb to fame. Like that is a
that's
what
I mean.
genre and is so successful. So like if they manage to do that, again, I'm on board as you, Justin, because I want to hear more of that. I want to hear more Star Wars Rider.
How jealous Figrin and Dan and the modal nodes got when they were listening to Jay's band with Geezer rocking out and Bobby Moynihan, of course, as G and bringing back Tamora Morrison for Boba Fett again in a role where you would think they could have gotten away with getting a different voice, but I'm so happy they dedicated. They were so dedicated to making sure it was. Given
that that's the only person we saw a character that we were associated with throughout this entire series, I'm okay that they give him the same voice because that anchors it again, just subtly being like, this does happen in the Star Wars universe,
or
just
could.
People you've never met before.
Right?
It's in the Star. It is in the Star Wars universe. It's just what version of the Star Wars universe. It depends on the story type thing.
Well, really quickly as we wrap up the voice cast section, I really enjoyed the voice cast in Akakiri. I thought George Takei was fantastic in this episode. I thought him and I can't quite remember who it was that plays the other guy in it. But I just loved how they were almost like the R2-D2 and C-3PO of this episode, very much playing off like the sort of tall and short comedic relief. But I also have to shout out Jamie Chung, Henry Golding, and Lorraine Toussaint, who I thought was so good as Masago, and really like just so terrifying. I just thought they did such a good job with their dialogue reads. It felt very natural. Where again, like when with the twins, like how unnatural that felt. So it was almost the opposite reaction I had, right? So yeah, man, I really dug their performance. But continuing on with what we heard, I think we have to discuss the incredible scores that accompanied each episode, taking influences from John Williams scores from across all three trilogies. And then some episodes going in completely opposite directions, allowing us to hear, music alongside the hum of a lightsaber that we never thought we needed until the show. So with that, I need to know, Darcy, why don't you kick us off with this one? Which score was your favorite throughout this season?
I've got two written down here, and I'm just looking over. I think I can just easily decide that the one I liked more was definitely Akakiri because of how different it was. It felt like a geisha performance or something like that, with just the simple drums and setting the pace. It was so Yeah, it was so raw, and I don't know, it matched that story so well. And for me, that was a lot. The whole series is really good at doing that. So picking one was hard, and like, I'm not saying any of the other scores were bad or anything like that, but they just managed to match the tone of the episode with like the animation style, with the story, with the music. Everything matched up so well across the series. They knocked it out of the ballpark. It was amazing.
It's, dude, when you consider that story is one of the closer in terms of a storyline perspective to the Star Wars that we know. Yeah, you're right. The music, having that contrast was so refreshing. The djembe and the taiko drum beats, in that final scene, just it adds to the badassness of the scene where, Tsubaki basically gives himself over to the dark side and joins Masago as his new master. I cannot understate how many chills I got during that moment. And the fact that moment really is such a dark moment, it's crazy how happy I was with it, even though it was so dark. And I think a huge aspect to that is the refreshing music, is the contrast.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Akakira has the most unique and different, and it was very refreshing. I loved how you said it, Nate. Hearing that music with the sounds of Star Wars, it was just so interesting, and it shows the possibility of that. And I think Ludwig has kind of leaned into that as well with his score of The Mandalorian and so on. But what I really appreciate about some of the scores is how they really tried to be inspired by Star Wars. So one that I really loved was The Ninth Jedi. I loved how much it felt like it lived in the world of a John Williams score. It had its own nuances and layers of being inspired by his score while also feeling fresh and just a little bit different at times. Not too heavy, but also, again, going back to the duel. Like, I think that the score in that, like, I think you and I, Nate, were talking about how it's like, it sounds like Duel of Fates at times.
It's Duel
right?
of the Fates, dude.
Yeah, for sure. It's totally, and I think that leaning into that as an inspiration and doing that's the right way. And I think that's how fans really appreciate Star Wars.
But it's crazy how that music can pay homage to two moments that we're so familiar with from Star Wars. The Maul and Qui-Gon, dance in the Phantom Menace, and then the final battle with Anakin and Obi-Wan on Mustafar, right?
I get you, bro.
But when you're watching Revenge of the Sith and you hear that music, you're like, this is so Duel of the Fates. And then yet again, we come back to it and we get to experience that again with these characters.
It's poetry.
It just falls so in line. It absolutely is poetry. But it's awesome that these studios and these anime creators and these writers were able to hit the nail on the head so much with that aspect.
Yeah, I totally get it, but it literally just, again, this is a bigger discussion for later, but it just shows that Lucasfilm needs to just really open the box. Don't stay within the canon, right? I feel like if you want Star Wars to change, then this is a route. It doesn't need to all be anime, but learn from that experience of what made that successful.
I mean, at this point, I'm open to literally giving anyone the reins of Star Wars to see where they can take it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Are we good to move to our next question?
Yeah, that got a little sidetracked.
That's okay. Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? I did mention the moment of Tsubaki, joining the dark side, joining his new master, and for me, that was one of my favorite moments. Was literally one of the last moments in the season. So speaking of favorite moments, I know for me, chills multiple times throughout this show. I need to know quickly your top 2 moments from any episode. And again, Darcy, we're going to start with yourself.
So I definitely really enjoyed Kara's maturation into Jedi, as she finds her way in the middle of the battle and becomes it. Because that whole episode with, tempering the Kyber crystal, bringing out, the Jedi will determine the length and the color of the blade and all that. It made the connection to the lightsaber much more, it seemed so much more meaningful. And to see her reach that during a battle, I thought that was a really cool moment. Following that one, going back to the Elder, because that fight scene was one of my favorite fight scenes from the entire series, and just the ending, it is almost like a knife drop type thing where he retracted the blade and then right to the chest and popped it through. It was, again, I've rewatched that moment alone probably 25 times because it's so cool and so vivid.
And again, you see how. We've seen that before. We've actually seen that. I probably a few times that I remember, but I specifically remember one of the best fight scenes in all of Star Wars, I think, cinematography, which is Rey and Kylo fighting the red guys. I can't remember what they're called.
Praetorian Guard.
Praetorian. Thank you. My Star Wars card is being redeemed as we speak. Unfortunately, they're taking it away from me. It's being, anyways. But yes, fighting the Praetorian Guards, you see that moment, and to get that again here, but to have it done in such a stylistic way was so freaking awesome. Justin, how about yourself? Let's hear those moments that gave you those chills.
This guy and I are on the same wavelength, because 100% the Ninth Jedi was, watching that fight sequence, it was awesome. Like, it was such a cool moment, as Darcy described, like her coming into her power and like having had that setup and already kind of starting to witness that payoff. It was just well crafted in a short time frame. And that was actually that was written as two separate stories, and they said, we love both, why don't you just do it as one? And they said, okay. So, but that being said, I think it has the best moments that felt Star Wars internally. And then for kill scenes, the Elder, man, when he sidesteps, turns his blade off and right back on, like, that was awesome. That was very samurai aesthetic of like,
oh, totally, yeah,
bravo, chef's kiss.
You know what? And again, it was so tough to choose two moments from this incredible series. For me, I would have to go with Umbrella lightsaber. When she stabs through that Trandoshan. Yeah. First of all, she doesn't just stab him. She pulls him with the Force onto her Umbrella lightsaber, which she then expands, slicing through him. Yeah.
The greatest thing is that she impaled him when it wasn't lit. That was just a pole. She just rammed a pole through him and then ignited lightsabers. That was, unbelievable. Also, honorable mention for me, definitely the blade catch from the duel. Like, when he uses the Force to catch that. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's again, so much about that episode paid so much homage to the samurai movies of old, and it's just like, even that blade catch is like, oh yeah, such a cool moment.
The other one that I'm going to shout out is The Village Bride. The music is swelling up, and you just see that moment where she just looks up and she goes, I am a Jedi. And then her freaking high-heeled jet boots? Come on, dude. Like, how do you get more Star Wars and more anime than that moment right there? It was such a perfect fusion that for me, it didn't feel too much, right? Where the twins, at times, when I watch it back, I'm like, okay, that's anime. But when I watch this, it's almost like the perfect balance of the two. And that made me so happy with it. I thought it was such a really well-done moment. She just shoots through, and then his hand is cut off, and then he's just standing there, and yellow lightsaber. Come on, it's so good. But listen, this brings me to probably the toughest question that we have tonight, which is your favorite episode of the 9 episodes. And we are going to start with Darcy, because Justin is freaking out over there. I don't think he's going to be able to decide. So Darcy, go
I
ahead.
have 2 written down. That's the thing. I don't know if I will decide. It's toss up between the Duel and the Elder. We keep talking about those 2 episodes, and I like them so much because the one feels like a traditional Star Wars story, like it almost feels like a Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan adventure in the Elder. And then you look at the Duel, which is such a unique, fresh spin on Star Wars. I like both those stories so much. But probably if I had to pick, the Elder, I think, because it sticks so close to home. I mean, it follows that it feels like a true Star Wars story, following like an apprentice and his master as they find a Sith Lord, and it hits all those beats so well, and the timing and pacing of it is incredible. I would love to see more stories just with those 2 characters alone.
Yeah, totally. Okay. All right. Well, okay. You didn't really nail the execution on picking one, Darcy, but that's okay.
I ended on one. Thank you very much. I had to talk my way there.
Yeah, exactly. But I think I'm gonna just say this. This was hard. Okay. Yeah. Everything about this series is, again, as I've gushed, I love it, and it's hard to pick my favorites. I watched 3 today. Okay. Yeah. And I did watch The Elder, and I did watch The Duel again, and they are fantastic episodes. But the episode I picked, because I just feel like it is the best idea of what Star Wars could be right now in a sort of new mentality, a new sort of structure, and I think that is the 9th Jedi. I feel like it was very much inspired by the idea of telling new stories like The Force Awakens was. It has very, very similar elements to a mystery behind Kara. And I feel like it established so much with its narrative that felt very familiar to Star Wars and where it could go. I would love to see it canonized and made into something, because I think there's a lot of potential there to do something amazing.
Well, yeah, they gotta go rescue Zima, man.
That's what I mean.
In his well-being.
Like all of this is just like, they could potentially do part 2 in season 2 of Visions, and they could continue their story. But then at that point, it's just like, why not just silo them off into series, right? Like,
sure. I mean, I think the coolest thing about The Ninth Jedi is how well it could be either well before what we've established as canon or well after what we've established as canon. And I would be perfectly fine with either way.
It was a unique perspective.
Yeah, so I did manage to pick one. Like yourselves, I watched today alone. I watched almost all these episodes. I enjoyed The Ninth Jedi. I watched Akakiri. I watched, The Duel, The Elder. For me, though, what is still giving me chills, and even thinking about it, is The Village Bride. I think, you have this Padawan who is very much tied into her old Jedi traditions, and then you have this master who is not, and it's so... That's not something we're so used to as Star Wars. This master who is, kind of bringing her to this exact moment where we see this village very sort of out of date rules that they're following because they've got this intruder and this, they're kind of very structured. And I don't know. I thought it was cool to see, her disagreeing with the villagers and what they were doing, and seeing her sort of cut off her own braid to sort of say, well, I will just, there's no Jedi around, I'm just going to become a Jedi myself. I just thought it was really cool, and it was really empowering for that character, and I love the quietness, the stillness, the respect for nature in the episode, and I thought it was a neat change in terms of the Force and kind of melding that together. They call it Magina, and how they meld that together, and how they say, Magina, may you rise and may the Force be with you.
Yeah.
And it just really kind of brought me back to I am one with the Force and the Force is with me. And
we heard that
right,
line,
which
yeah.
we right, but I just thought it was so cool to see them interpret that in a different way.
Sure.
And again, just that ending was perfect for me. I just loved how well that ended.
I really like The Village Bride because I thought it was a really cool way to show other ways to connect the Force that isn't what we know of the Jedi. Because there are many races out there, as we know from like Maz Kanata. She's
totally. Exactly.
Who are Force sensitive, but they don't follow the same "May the Force be with you" saying and all that stuff. So it was really cool seeing another culture that was built around the Force in a way, but in this universe it was the Magina. I thought that was a really standout episode. All of them are good. I could talk about why I like all of them.
The thing about The Village Bride that really stood out to me is, again, what you guys are already kind of talking about, is how they really turned the Force into a religion. It's all uniting to one being, right, and to one idea. Yet there's different ways to experience that, and that's kind of what the Force is, right? Like it's all this sort of understanding of existence, and each culture has its own representation. So I think it does continue this idea that it's how different cultures can experience it. Like Maz Kanata is a great call out for that.
And in a way, isn't this show just how different cultures
100%.
experience Star Wars laid out in front of us visually?
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a great culmination in terms of what this series is. So for me, I had to go with The Village Bride. But you know what? We have we're getting a little bit long in this episode, much longer than any of the episodes in the season 1. So I want to kind of get to our overall feelings. Justin and I kind of shared our overall feelings in our spoiler-free episode, which you should still give a listen to if you haven't already. I think if you're pretty hyped for this show, you can go back and see kind of where we were at when we just finished watching it for the first time. But I still want to know your score for this season, which we're going to be rating on a scale of 1 to 5 power cores. So Darcy, let's hear it from yourself first.
Well, I feel like it's pretty obvious what I'm going to be giving it, considering I can't stop talking about how much I like the series. It knocked it out of the ballpark. They did Star Wars so well in so many different ways, and I can't wait for more, be it continuations, spin-offs, whatever comes from this. I'm excited for it. 5 out of 5 power cores. I loved it.
There you go, Justin.
Well, I can't. If you couldn't tell already, I love this series, man. It's literally the best thing to ever have the Star Wars name attached to it.
Wow.
I said this in our spoiler free. It is what Star Wars needs more so than sequels, prequels, or any sort of spin-off. It needs to be the opened box, be inspired by it. It's so much fun to look at. It takes something that we're so familiar with and we love so much, and it remixes it in such a creative way. Like it is awesome. So for that reason, I am giving this series a 5 out of 5 power cores. But what did you expect? But yeah, I want more, man. I want more sooner than later, and more so than anything that they're currently working on. So yeah,
totally. I think this is probably, if I had to think of another time back to that I didn't experience with Star Wars, but I can imagine, it's the feeling of all of the people who loved Star Wars when the original, now defunct, non-canon, expanded universe books started coming out. Your Kevin J. Anderson, your Timothy Zahn, your Matthew Stover, your Aaron Alliston, like all these authors who created these new worlds, these new stories from the stories that people love. I can imagine fans at the time of the canon being like, this is amazing,
right,
because they're going somewhere else with it.
Yeah.
And the fact that we get a taste of that with this series, I absolutely agree with you, Justin. I want more of it so much. 5 out of 5 power cores, 100%. Peanut butter and chocolate, like name any duo that go together perfectly. Jedi and Padawan, like these are this series just works so well. And so I think that's where I want to kind of cap off this episode in this spoiler-filled review. Again, we could probably talk about this for another 5 hours, but we're not going to. Instead, I want to know, for a season 2, what do you want?
I just want more. I don't really care what it is.
Same.
Right? Like I think that, like, even to the point of this question, it doesn't have to be specific. If this is what we got and we didn't even know it, I just do it again. Do whatever you want. You could do more stories from these stories,
for
or
these
you
characters?
can do for these characters,
Yeah.
or you can just do new stories and open the box, right? But
Other producers, like there's
I'll get other
so
studios
many things out there. Yeah,
There's just so many options, right?
For me, I definitely would want more stories. I think that might fall outside of the Padawan and Jedi Jedi Master sort
Sure.
of narrative. Like, I think there was a very big through point of a lot of the themes that we are used to with Star Wars, but again, how refreshing was it to get to the Pinocchio of Toby, or the Tatooine Rhapsody episode with a musical band, musical performance. Like, give me more of that. And I think I've said on the podcast a few times, like, explore different genres. And if comedic musical is a genre you want to explore in Star Wars, I am so for it, especially if it's done so stylistically and with such care. So I think that would be really cool.
What I'm looking forward to, if it's not continuations of these stories, I would hope that we get at least mini-series or something like that for some of the stories.
Yeah.
Give me 2 or 3 more episodes, or like a short film type thing. I'd love that. But if they were going to go a new story, the one thing I want to see is give me one of the racing anime production companies do a pod racing anime, because that would be incredible. I think the visuals from that episode alone would be enough to satisfy me all over again.
Oh, that's a good one.
Wow.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good
And
one.
wait, which studio, Darcy, do you think you would
Just
want to do
like
that?
even going back to like people who did the Initial D. Like, whenever I think racing anime, Initial D is the first one that comes to mind, because it's so iconic for its like mind-bending scenes of them like drifting around corners or using the NOS or stuff like that. Like, they just stretch reality. And
could you
it looks
imagine
so
a
good with
Speed
the pod
Racer meets Star Wars episode?
Right?
Like, that would be
Like,
would be.
Dude.
It'd be so
Nate
good.
would
That
eat
needs
that
to
stuff
happen.
up. He'd be like, I want movies, I want
go.
T-shirts.
What if they did like a Fast and the Furious style?
That's true.
Almost like more of like a gangs
Heist.
of Jabba's
Like a
palace,
heist
and it's
style? Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a heist style. Like, there's so many ways that they can go with this series. Any other last words before we wrap up?
It was really cool hearing Hero from Heroes as Ethan in Ninth Jedi. I forgot to mention that earlier. I'm just going to say that now.
There we go. Shout out to Hero from Heroes. All right. Well, again, I say dank Ferric. I think we could talk about this show for a million years. But that's it for our spoiler-filled review of Star Wars Visions. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, feel free to leave a 5-star review. And make sure to write in to tell us your favorite episode. Or if you have any anime suggestions for us. Jedi Master Justin, can you let the lovely listeners know where they can write in or how they can write in?
Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I got that. Yeah, that was good.
That's pretty close, yeah. And you know what? If you are, maybe a little bit younger than the original trilogy, if you liked Ewoks, or maybe you liked what would be the equivalent to Porgs. Maybe you're a big Porg fan. Justin, can you let those kids know how to reach us?
Why, of course, they can reach out to us at Twitter at GeekcentricYT, and they can reach us on Instagram at We Are Geekcentric. I wasn't really prepared for that. So.
No, it's okay. I love it. Please keep that. It reminds me, every time you do that voice, I just hear, Luke.
Hello.
Luke.
Luke. Hello there.
Keep in mind, we have a ton of other episodes covering the latest content out now on various streaming platforms or just in the Geekosphere, including our spoiler-filled and free review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We have our spoiler-free review of Only Murders in the Building, and we also dropped our spoiler-free review of The Guilty, which is out on Netflix on October 1st. So make sure to check out that review to let you know whether or not you should check out that movie. We also have our ongoing watch club for What If, which we are so stoked going into. What is it going to be? The 9th episode, I think, is our next watch club.
Well, tomorrow's
8th episode.
Yeah. Well, at the time of recording this episode, we're going to be recording episode 8 tomorrow once we watch it. But next week is this season finale. So tomorrow's the penultimate. So it's going to be
so good.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be a good one. We are so looking forward to it. Please join us for that watch club. And for those episodes, please leave a 5-star review if you don't mind. Justin, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this spoiler-filled review. I'm going to go watch a few more episodes before I go to bed of this show again. And they also have a great, if you don't know, on Disney Plus, they have an amazing extras that we just found out about before we recorded this.
Yeah, feels kind of unprofessional not to have watched those before we had this covered.
Justin, we'll watch them again.
I'm going to watch it now. I'm going to watch it now, too.
We'll probably talk about all this stuff in the future. But until next time, as we say, love ya.
Laters.
Peace.